right, it's getting serious. Kelly's back. Serious class time. You all have an enjoyable theory evening. What do you got?
There'll be, there's usually, I think there's 7 or 8 online.
That's about what I'm working with.
Sometimes.
Yeah, this is
They mess with me though, because I've got Kelsey sitting at one table and Hannah sitting at another table. And then Kaylee and Bailey are right next to each other. It's ridiculous. I never know who I'm talking to.
yes. That is super hard to deal with.
Yeah, I've noticed. They're pretty unruly.
Yeah, this is a wild crowd in here. I don't even know
Super wild.
how to get anything done with these people. How do you accomplish anything? All right. Well, have a fun theories evening.
See you, Dr. Burr.
We'll see you all.
Love that man.
Science.
Oh, yes.
I don't want to know.
I'm always.
But can the essential elements of home,
Wow, that's loud.
but can the essential element,
All right, is everyone ready? Extended classroom, are you ready? Okay, we will jump back into the evolutionary theory stuff. Before we get into that, everybody is doing pretty good with everything, so I have no complaints thus far. Just keep at it. If you have any questions about anything with theory sheets or discussion questions, just let me know and we can figure it out together. But I'm happy, so if I'm happy, I assume you're happy. And if you're happy, then that makes me happier, so everything's good. We left off with evolutionary theory last week, talking about three very important concepts to this theoretical perspective. We talked about natural selection, we talked about fitness, and we talked about adaptation. And with adaptation, where we left off was three important scenarios for discussion there when it comes to how we pass on what's important. So we talked about models, imitating models. We talked about direct instruction, and then we left it off talking about innate behavior, what's genetic, what we're born with that is just a part of us. So what we're going to do tonight is move on into a couple of specific areas of evolutionary perspectives. Talk a bit about ethology, and we'll talk about attachment. And so you'll be able to see, hopefully you'll be able to see in these two theories, these two unique theories, some of the common themes of evolutionary perspectives moving forward. And you'll be able to kind of see where concepts like natural selection and fitness and adaptation fit into these more streamlined, more progressed perspectives. So unique theories, but still evolutionary perspectives. Okay, So starting with ethology, ethology is really looking at animal behavior and seeing what we can see in particular animal behaviors and how that might contribute to the further growth and development of that individual animal, but also to that species, whatever the species is that the animal belongs to. And then, more recently, we've used ethology to ask questions about human behavior. So we've looked at animal behavior and how animals thrive and survive over generations. And we've used that to ask specific questions about humans. Do we do things similarly? What's different about our behavior from an animal? What's the same? What kind of drives do we have that keep us moving forward, that keep us adapting? There is some controversy with that particular use of the theory. However, you are in this room, so you're a human developmentalist, right? You're interested in human behavior in some form or fashion. And so we are probably going to fall on the side of, hey, there's probably some things that we can learn from studying animal behavior. And those things that we learn can lead us to some really good questions about our own human behavior. Does that seem fair? So I kind of like this, and I like looking at, I like animals to begin with. Is anybody else with me? Anybody have an animal? Anybody have any pets? What kind of pets do we have? Who's the dog people? I'm a dog person. Any cat people? Okay, I don't have any cats. Fish, gerbils, hamsters, llamas. I've heard llamas are pretty big. My in-laws live right next to a llama farm, so my kids get to go pet the llamas and the alpacas every time they go up to the lake. So I'm cool with all of that. I like to study my dog. His name is Ollie. We named him after the Green Arrow. He's a Morkie. He was my 40th birthday present. So we're tight. He's my little buddy. But I like to study his behavior because it is very interesting to me how similar he is to my son Josiah. They have the same personality. They react the same way in certain situations. And they know how to get on each other's nerves because they're exactly the same. And so they do that. And it's fascinating to me because they are so similar. I love watching Ollie and then watching Josiah and just seeing their behaviors interact. And I think that's why this part of evolutionary theory, at least in part, why it kind of makes sense to me that we can study other species and lead to good questions, right? When I am gone for an extended period of time, Ollie will sit, depending on when it is. If it's during the day, Ollie will sit in front of my bedroom. And he'll just sit there. And he will wait. And we'll come home, and there he will be. If I'm gone for more than just the day at the office or whatever, he will do a number of different things, but they typically include either trying to break into my bedroom to sit on my side of the bed, or he'll climb up and he'll sit in my recliner, or he will go and he will perch himself on the window in the dining room that looks out to our front yard. Just waiting, right? As if he knows that there's a connection, and at some point, I'm going to come to one of those three places. He's going to see me drive in, or he knows I'm going to have to go to bed. At some point, I'm going to come home to go to bed, or I'm going to come back and I'm going to sit in my chair, because I'm the only one that gets to sit in that chair, right? But Lisa says, when I'm gone, he sits there just waiting for me. what's fascinating about that is when I'm gone for a long period of time, well, Josiah doesn't just sit and wait. He's a 7-year-old boy. He's got other things to do. He, too, when he is in his downtime, when he's getting sleepy, when he's especially aware that I'm gone, he will go crawl into my bed and he will lay on my pillows, just find comfort there. I have a KU blanket that I use sometimes, and he will wrap himself in that. Or he will crawl up into my chair, which he knows that's Daddy's chair, right? But he will crawl up into it, and Lisa says sometimes he will sit there, and it's got the like push button recliner, you know, the electric one, and he will hang over the side of the chair and push it back till it reclines, and then he will just lay back and put his hands under his head, and he will just chill out there and just kind of be me for a little while, right? And if he knows I'm coming home, he will go wait at the door, or he'll go check the door periodically to see if he can hear anything yet. 2 different species, 2 different types of connection, right? I love Ollie, but he's not my son, right? He's my dog. There's a different connection there, but 2 very similar behaviors. So that gets me asking all kinds of questions about attachment, about connection, about emotional bonds, about space and place and where those fit in relationship, and all of these different things, right? So it's fascinating to me. I love that idea of looking at animals. So when we talk about where this fits into evolutionary perspectives and thinking about human behavior, one of the key terms for ethologists, or really developmentalists who are in that vein of ethology that uses animal behavior to ask human questions, is the term imprinting. Has anybody ever heard that term imprinting before? Raise your hand. I see some heads. Okay, a couple of us have heard that. So imprinting occurs early on in an animal's life when the animal forms an attachment to another organism, usually their mother, and learns to copy the behavior and the characteristics of that organism. So I want to show you a video of imprinting, and I want you to see the power of imprinting as an evolutionary tool, that an animal will lock on to another organism and model its behavior. Typically its mother, but it doesn't have to be. And that's what's really fascinating, I think, for us. So let me see if I can share the screen here. Okay. At home, folks, do you see the PBS logo? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to make that bigger. Oh, I did not. There it is. Okay, hopefully this doesn't blow out the people next door. I'll turn it down a little bit.
For the first 2 years of their life, these chicks will think of him as mother. They'll trust and follow him above all others. It's a process known as imprinting, and it's something that many birds do from the moment they're born. A few hours later, the hatchlings are already following their oversized mother goose wherever he goes. Christian's ultimate goal is to film these chicks retracing the great journeys of wild birds from his microlight. It's a huge commitment that will continue long after the filming is over. And it will take months of tender care and devotion before he and his new bird family take to the air.
Always have my kid.
Okay, here's what I want you to do. Those of you that are in person, I want you to just talk to the people around you for the next minute or so. Those of you that are in the extended classroom, I want you to go into the chat and talk to each other through the chat. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about the term imprinting, specifically to what you just saw with those baby geese, who the first organism that they saw was a grown human man, and they immediately imprinted upon him. They recognized him as some kind of authority. They started basing their character, their patterns on his characteristics and his behaviors. And so as you're thinking about that, what I want you to do as you're talking to each other is to think, what are some important questions that we might ask about our own human behavior beginning at birth, having to do with our caretakers, that come to our minds just from seeing what we saw with those animals. Does that make sense? What kind of questions come to our mind about our own human behavior just from watching that? Everybody online got it? Okay. You have, we'll say, 2 minutes to come up with some questions. Discuss.
Specific question.
Let's see. Actions. Protection.
The chat's not on, but all I can think of, like, that's similar is eventually the baby will want to be with someone that they recognize, which is usually their parents. But I don't know what
As soon as the baby and they nurturing because they have nothing the first thing that I think about, but you know, where they ancient that natural whatever it is, but it's the
Well, no, I thought there was only one way to hold the towel and blanket, and then other ways to forward it.
You were the last one.
And I mean, that's what it always or just like, how those things, and then when it go into adoption with the first child, and like after me, or then not as simple, right off the bat, there's in your mind, that's
I think about my grandson, the grandson, that he mimics and
yeah, when I wash dishes, I always drink the rag over time, let it lay out, and let it like
smelly, but like how, and then my husband, he'll just like wad it up and get it in the corner, I'm like, you don't do that. That's not the way she is. So that's all I like what is natural? Yeah. Like we're like separating what is what is holding it out, what you're doing. So like how it's just such a good what if you shape the way you hold that?
All right, I hear conversation laws. So we had some good conversation in the chat room as well with thinking about the loud duck on Tom and Jerry, I think was brought up, and thinking about Tarzan and Tarzan's connection to animals and kind of reverse there, right? But then also, I think it was Ashley brought up a really good point about like what we know about bird brains and their function, and they're able to do that. And then you think about the complexity of the human brain in structure and function compared to that. And so what's the potential there, right? What were some of the things that you all talked about?
We talked about nurture versus nature because they have no knowledge of how nature actually works, because they have that human that's leading them also, and also provision, depending on that human being to provide for them. You know, where, what was that? A duck or something? What were they?
They were geese.
Geese.
Yes.
Where natural born geese would provide for their geeseling and different things like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, and follow, you know, they're gonna follow him until they know something differently.
Yeah, for sure. And so like the natural order of things is messed up, and their awareness of that is, at least our perception of their awareness of that is that they're not aware. Yeah, because for them, this is the natural order of things. And do we see that in humans? That's a great question. Like, I don't think we would expect an infant, a newborn, to understand the natural order of things. And so does it matter if the biological caretaker is the one giving care, right?
As a baby, I don't think so.
Right. And I think those are questions that we ask and have been asked. And I think when we look at adoption studies and even looking at stories of like feral children who were, you know, maybe neglected or raised away from community, abandoned, and their upbringing, like I think those questions are questions that we do ask. Yeah, great. Anybody else? What were you talking about?
We kind of talked about how like we grow up and we do certain things, and then when we surround ourselves with people that do it a different way, we don't realize that we just kind of modeled that example from our parents, and that there's other different ways to do a certain task. Yeah,
And those geese, like he said, he's getting them prepped to fly, right? And eventually they're going to take to the skies, and they're going to meet other geese, right? And they're going to be honking at each other, and they're going to be like, wait, you weren't raised by like this 40-year-old all-human dude? No, right? And they may not know things like flying in a V, right? Or other, you know, we got to go south. Why do we do that, right? Like those types of things. And those are things that, yeah, they might pick up later. And it's just, again, I love that. Like as we grow and develop, what questions are we asking that maybe prove the importance of nurture versus those innate types of ability, or the connection. The innateness is I'm going to pattern or imprint on whatever I see first, right?
So question,
Yes.
in a case such as that, and I turn them out in the wild with their own habitat, do they survive or do they die?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer. I think this gentleman this is what he does. So I think he's preparing them to be able to enter the wild, but I still think there's going to be some things that they will encounter in the wild that they're still going to have to learn as they go and develop. So there's still going to be some adaptation there, right? So they're imprinting, they've got that innate behavior to pattern after what they see, but eventually he is going to let them go. And so there is going to have to be some, we would call it direct instruction. They're going to be maybe modeling where they're going to see other geese doing certain things. So
I thought of a good example. My aunt just took in a baby squirrel and she raised it. It fell out of the tree. They found it, and so they took it in and it nested and everything. She's released it in the wild and it's doing great. It's been a few months. It still comes back and eats.
Yeah.
And it loves on her, and then it's been doing fine. She worries about him, but it's been doing good.
My in-laws live on Grand Lake in northeastern Oklahoma, and some people just down the road from them rescued a baby deer that had gotten stuck like in a thicket or something, and they ended up raising the deer. They ended up nursing the deer back to health and raising it, and the deer would stay in their yard and eventually just became their pet. It was their deer. And that deer grew over the next few years and would still be in their yard, and they would leave the gate open and stuff. Same thing. Deer would go out into the woods, do whatever deer do, and then it would come back, and it kind of knew both, right? It was like learning out here, but it also had a home base. That sounds a lot like what we're going to talk about in a minute with attachment theory, with our behavior, right? So we're seeing these things, right? I hope that you're getting that. Like we can ask good questions from looking at other species, and that's okay. That's great. If we can learn more about ourselves from other creatures, then all the better. Why not do that? I love to talk about the idea of innate behavior versus the influence of voices when we talk about our own development and evolutionary perspectives. So like what's more important? What we know, what's inside of us, or what the systems we're a part of are telling us, right? And so unfortunately we can't do what I normally do during this time. What I normally do during this time is I set up the room and I let you kind of see how I'm setting up the room, and then I take two of you out and you get blindfolded, and I tell you that you're going to find a certain object, an object that you've probably seen at some point during the night. So it might be something like I want you to find the red bat. And so you're going to have in your idea, where did I see that red bat? In your mind, where did I see that red bat? And you're going to have in your mind an idea of what the room looked like. And I'm going to let you come back in. And what you're not going to know is that when you were out, we moved a few things around to kind of trip you up, right? And I'm going to tell you to listen to voices. And you're going to have to decide, am I going to listen to these voices, or am I going to go by what I know? When I tell you to listen to voices, I'm going to tell half the voices to be telling you one thing, tell you the truth, turn right, turn left, go 3 steps. I'm going to have the other voices tell you the complete opposite of whatever you should be doing. They're going to try to keep you away from that red bat, right? Like turn around and walk back out the door, right? We threw it out the window, those types of things. And the whole point is, are you listening to what you know? Are you listening to what you hear? And which one of those things, because in our example, the red bat is going to represent evolutionary success. Your line is going to continue, right? If you don't get the red bat, I'm sorry. You are extinct. There is no more of your being or anyone like you. So what matters most then? What we know or what we're surrounded by? We won't do that. But I did come up with another example, and that's why I brought this. This kind of leads us to this idea of how we might actually carry out imprinting or that type of idea even farther within humans. So I can give my son this bat and give him no instructions. And from the very beginning, do you know what he does with this? He swings it. He hits things. He does, when he was really young, he tried to eat it, but that's innate behavior too, right? He realized quick, no, that doesn't give me any food, so it must be used for something else. And I don't know if he saw people swinging bats at that young age. I know now he loves baseball. Very interesting because his daddy loves baseball. Was that inside of him, or is that something that he learned? But he would pick up the bat and he would swing it, right? Well, eventually there came a point in time where I wanted him to make a connection between this bat and this ball. Like these two things actually go together. So if I gave him the ball early on, but not the bat, he wouldn't go around hitting things with it. What would he do with it? He threw it, right? He never really threw the bat. It was almost like he knew, I better not throw this, right? Throw this, I'm going to get in trouble. Or I'm going to break something. Like he just kind of knew by the shape and the size, this is something to club people with. This is something to throw. Okay, so that's great, but I want him to make the connection between bat and ball. And trust me, you may not know this, you may not believe this, but trust me, all right? As an avid lover of the game of baseball, the greatest sport ever. No, don't argue. This will make sense to you. Let's think about two different scenes. First, I need a volunteer. Online folks, you're going to get to be a part of this as well. I need somebody who wants to be the child. Who wants to be Summer? Come on up, be the child. I'm cleaning the handle for you. You don't have to worry about any of my germs. My kids have not touched that bat, so all good there. I'm gonna probably touch this a little bit, but I need somebody online who has a parently voice. Who wants to have a parently voice? Oh, come on now. Julie, you're grinning from ear to ear. She says no. Anyone? Anyone? All right, I'm going to have to choose somebody here if none of my online folks will do it. Anybody in the room want to be the parent? Wow, there's no volunteers. I'm going to have to start drawing names out.
I'll do it.
All right, Bailey, come here. You are simply going to teach Summer how to hit the ball. But come here, because this is how you're going to do it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, whenever you're ready, action.
Okay, you're gonna hold the bat up. Yeah, your hands need to be on top of the baby. They need to be not touching. No, move it down. A little closer. No, and then not on the end. Yeah, up a little higher. Squeeze the bat really tight. So
Squeeze the bat tight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're teaching her how to hit the ball, so what else are you gonna do?
Okay, so now I'm gonna throw the ball.
What, you're the parent, whatever you wanna do.
Okay, and then you're gonna just swing at the ball. And then, you want us to do it?
Yeah. I don't think you'll break anything, it's soft.
You ready?
Ooh, the instruction on that one. The instruction there. Did you teach her anything?
No.
No?
Not very well.
Okay. Give these two a hand.
Oh, thank you.
There
You
was,
would say how I was supposed to be over there.
you did what you were supposed to
Good
do.
job.
There was a method there. There was a method there. Now, because of the virus, I'm gonna do the other one because we can't be touching anybody, all right? So I wanna show you the difference between method 1 and method 2 and how I, as a parent, and again, not saying I'm a better parent than Bailey, all right? We're not going there. So this is how I might teach Josiah how to hit a ball, right? And remember, Josiah is part of what comes with Josiah's extra chromosome is stubbornness. He doesn't like to listen. He wants to do his own thing. So it would be very easy for me to get into that. No, hold the bat this way. No, move your hands. Move your hands. No, no, squeeze it tight. Squeeze it tight was a new one. All my years of baseball, I've never heard hold the bat tight. I love the bat. With Joe, here's what I might do. I might actually go up to him and I might actually get behind him and I might say, okay, buddy, you're gonna put your left hand down at the bottom. You want to feel the base of the bat there. And then you're gonna put your right hand over top of it. And you don't wanna cross your thumbs. You want those level, okay? And then you're gonna come back and you're gonna put the bat on your shoulder. You're gonna slightly bend your knees. I'm gonna show him how to do that. I'm gonna say, he'll be like this with his knees bent. I'll say, don't spread your legs a little bit. No, not that far. Right? And I'll have to show him. I'll move them together. I know this because I coached his T-ball team this year, and I had to do that with 12 7-year-olds who 10 of them, it was their first time ever playing, and it was the same thing every time at bat. All right, spread your knees. A little closer, a little farther, a little closer. Right? I finally got it right, and then I was like, all right, bend them a little bit. No, not that far, right? But I'm going to model it with him, hand over hand. And then we're going to have the ball, and I'm going to start with, you started with throwing the ball, but that's okay because that's what I told you to do, right? It's not going to make any, if I start with throwing the ball with Josiah, it's going to be a train wreck. He's going to miss way worse than Summer. He's probably going to swing around. He's going to throw the bat. It's going to be crazy, right? So we start with the tee. Put it there, and then I help him swing, hand over hand. Get that feeling, right? Then I step back, and I let him swing. And he misses, and he hits the tee. And I tell him, okay, we're going to hold our heads steady. We're going to look at the ball. Keep your eyes on the ball the whole time. And then instead of going like that when he swings, he's going to look. And he might still hit the tee. And I'll say, okay, we're going to adjust our shoulders a little bit. And then he hits the ball. Okay, you see the difference between the two methods? Now, not saying that one method is better than the other method all the time, but I am saying that one of the things that we learn from animals is their ability to pattern behavior. And so then it makes sense that if pattern behavior works in other species, that maybe it works in ours. And so when it comes to the parent-child relationship, how can we specifically pattern behaviors that we want our children to enact in? Sometimes it's going to come just through telling them, do this, right? Or don't do that. And that's needed. But other times, we're going to use what's innately there. I know to swing this thing at something. And then we're going to go over and we're going to model it for them and with them in order to produce a desired outcome, right? In this case, the desired outcome is we want them to be able to hit the ball and have fun and fall in love with the game of baseball and enjoy it, right? Bigger picture types of things, we want him to engage in an activity with his peers so that they will begin to normalize Down syndrome. And so that he will normalize Down syndrome. And so that he will grow up being included. So that policy will change. And maybe he will be a policy changer. So that when he is older, because I spent time teaching him how to hit a baseball, he may be the person that makes it legal for people with disabilities to get married in our country so they don't lose their services.
Does it help him with interaction skills as well?
Yeah, exactly. So you see, like, there's big picture, there's evolutionary thought in this. And we're not explicitly thinking that, right? Believe me, when he's hitting the tee over and over, or he's grumpy because it's not his turn to bat, or he doesn't want to wear the helmet, there are times when I'm done, right? Your thing, right? Go imprint on your mama for a while. We don't explicitly think, no, you are doing this so that you can change the world for people with Down syndrome. But big picture, I hope that all of these little things that he is doing is going to lead to some evolutionary success for people with Down syndrome. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, so that's ethology. I love it. We're learning from other species. Now we move on to attachment. Attachment theory. I would be surprised if most of us haven't at least heard of attachment theory. So let's just do a quick show of hands. If you have never heard of attachment theory, raise your hand. Okay, good. Attachment tends to be undergrad 101, right? It's one of those theories that we go to. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the ins and outs of attachment theory. I did post for you last week a couple of different sheets that just give you kind of the overview of what attachment theory is, the phases and the attachment types. And so I would encourage you to look at that, and that'll give you some concepts that are important in this theoretical perspective. What I want you to get out of this is just understanding that how attachment is an evolutionary perspective. Like, it's this great theory that's well developed that most of us who are going to go into child development types of careers, we know attachment theory very well. But I want you to understand that attachment theory is an evolutionary perspective. Does that make sense? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to brainstorm with me for a little bit. When a baby is born, it has certain needs. So what I would like for you to do is I would like for you, let's see if I can. Oh, this is all so much different than what I have. Can I write on this? I tell you what, we'll just talk it out. We'll just talk it out. I want to brainstorm with you some needs, and I want to discuss the importance of each of them. So I want you to write these down. Okay? Write down clothing. And I'll enter them into the chat for everyone online. food, security blanket or stuffed animal, being held by a parent or caregiver, stimulation from toys or television, and sleep. So I want to start at the top of that list with clothing. We're going to work our way down there, and I want us to brainstorm together these needs. I want us to specifically discuss the importance of each of these needs. So why is clothing important? What is it? Why is it important? So let's start there. Why do babies need clothing? Warmth. What else? Online folks, you can feel free to jump in too.
I think it's a social thing. I think people would get kind of weirded out if your baby was naked all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of a social expectation that we're going to wear clothes, right? Now, babies will be able to get away with it for a little longer, but people are going to start to question, why is your baby naked all the time? Yeah. All right, so warmth, social expectation, what else?
Comfort sometimes.
Yeah,
When
comfort.
you swaddle them.
Yeah, exactly. Comfort. Clothing feels good. I mean, even now, right? We all have our favorite pair of sweatpants. Like, comfort's part of that. Anything else you can think of with clothing?
Protection from other elements.
Okay, protection from other elements, yeah. Different types of clothes protect from different things, right? Okay, what about food?
Nourishment, growth,
Yeah,
they need that in order for them to grow.
yeah. Nourishment, it promotes physical development. What else?
A better mood.
Puts you in a better mood, yeah. Yeah, when a baby's hungry, they're gonna cry and scream sometimes, and food can end that quickly. What about a security blanket or a stuffed animal? Why would they need that?
It brings comfort, like a sense of security.
Yeah, it's actually in the title, right? Security blanket.
Yeah.
It brings some kind
Yeah.
of security to them. It's like it's a home base. It's a comfort.
Help them feel secure, more secure than what they do.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe in the absence of a caregiver,
Yeah.
that's gonna provide that feeling of security. What else? Anybody still have a stuffed animal from when you were a kid? No one does? Oh, a couple. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, we got some online that do too. Okay, good deal. I'm a weirdo, I guess. I've actually got we've got a box up in my I guess it's kind of mine. Up in our toy room, there's a box of vintage 1977 through 1980 stuffed animals that were mine. Even my teddy bear that you wound up and it played music, and now you wind it and it's like, even that stuff. I still have those. It's pretty cool. I have a giant Winnie the Pooh that its throat has been ripped open, so I don't know what I did to that poor thing at one time. But when I look at those, even now, it brings back a sense of
Comfort,
comfort and like
security.
just nostalgia, just this idea of like fun, and I was loved, and I honestly have no memories of myself with those stuffed animals, right? That whole childhood amnesia thing, and we don't typically remember anything before the age of 3 anyways, or have real functional memories of those things. So, but I can see those, and I see pictures of myself with those animals, and I know that there was some kind of important connection there, right? And I know one of them, this raccoon that I have, was made by one of my aunts. And so I don't have any memories of myself with this raccoon pillow thing, but I still have the raccoon pillow thing. And in the bottom corner, I'm going to tell you my middle name. and I don't want any laughing. I hate my name, okay? Bobby Lee. You're like, that's not too bad. Yeah. Spell my name Bobbilea, and all of a sudden I am a Southern Belle and not me, right? I've hated my name my entire life. But in the corner of that raccoon, it says Bobby Lee. And there is only one person in the family that is allowed to still call me that. And it's the aunt that made that raccoon for me. So when I see that raccoon pillow, there's a connection, right? There's love. Okay, what about being held by a parent or a caregiver?
Affection.
Affection, what a great word. Yeah,
I always think of security also.
yeah, security there as well. Right, love, comfort, all of those things that we've talked about. Peace. Well, we'll see in a minute, a home base. Like great stuff there. Stimulation from toys or television. What about that?
Fun. Fun.
Fun, yeah. Lots of fun.
Play.
Give the brain.
Yeah, we have play online. Hannah said, given a chance for our brain to charge or recharge. Yeah, for sure. All of those things very important. Play is one of my favorite words. I actually, with my undergrads, when I teach my adolescence and emerging adulthood class, one of the things that we talk about is how we promote the importance of play for cognitive development in early childhood and middle childhood and late childhood. And then all of a sudden we get to adolescence and we don't talk about play anymore. And yet when you look at the research, play as an adolescent, an emerging adult, and even as an adult has these same types of benefits that it does when we're 4 and 5 years old. Like, how cool is that, right? It makes it helps our brain development. It helps our physical development and our social development. It's great. I love that term. Last one, sleep.
Helps
Why is
with brain
this-
development.
Yeah, it does. It helps with brain development. We know that our bodies need a recharge, right? We know that during sleep, that is a time when our brains, especially as young children, are most active in the pruning process, shedding off the dendrites, the nerve endings that are not being fired upon anymore, and then refiring or creating new impulses there. A lot of that happens while we are sleeping. What else?
It can like change your mood, like they're tired,
Yeah,
grumpy.
yeah. Same thing like with food, right? Food or sleep. Here's an evolutionary thought too when it comes to thinking about the importance of sleep. When our infants sleep, we sleep, right? So there's a multi-generational effect there. That's great. I loved it when my infants slept. Okay, so we're all in agreement that these things are important. Here's what I want you to do. For the next 30 seconds on your piece of paper in front of you, I want you to take these items and I want you to rank them in order of most important to least important for you.
It was 5 of them?
6. Okay. How many of you rank clothing number 1? Anybody? Okay, we got one. How many ranked food number one? Few. Security blanket or stuffed animal. Being held by a parent or caregiver. There. Stimulation from toys or television. Nobody there? Where are my sleep people at? We're on the same wavelength. Right there. Okay, who's right?
Everyone?
Say it louder.
Everyone?
Everyone. Right? We can qualify these in our own mind, right? But we're all going to parent differently because we were all parented differently. Some of our parents might have really placed a high importance, a high value on sleep. Not that they didn't value food. They didn't tell you, go to your bed and stay there and sleep. Don't worry about eating. They still fed you, right? But when ranking these, we might think, okay, sleep is probably the most important for this child to get. That's okay. That's okay. What I want you to see from this is not that there's right and wrong necessarily, but that there are behaviors that we all might engage in at different levels, but engage in nonetheless, that are all important for the survival of this species. And maybe survival is too harsh of a word. Maybe in developmental terms, we might just say for the advancement of the human species. But do you see how those things are important? Now, the second thing I want you to see is that those things are front and center when we talk about attachment theory. When we talk about how a child connects to their caregiver. It's not, I'm going to connect with you because you value sleep over food or because you value clothing over toys. It's, I'm going to connect with you because you value whatever it is you value, and that is clear to me. Attachment is all about what we see, like what we value, and how consistent we are with that. Right? And so you get into your types of attachment, and you see that there's only one secure type. And what's really cool about that is even though there's only one secure type of attachment and there's 3 insecure types of attachment, the vast majority of infants will be securely attached. Regardless of the order of those things, right? So value, consistency, and response matter. Bowles became up with the idea of attachment. The phases are from his work. Mary Ainsworth, his student, took it a step further and developed a way to measure this when working with infants and looking at infants. She called it the strange situation. Anybody ever heard of the strange situation? We're going to actually watch a video from Ainsworth's lab. It's about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. And it's just a quick look at what the strange situation experiment is. And it's going to show you the connection of value, consistency, and response in that little human's behavior. Okay, so let's watch this. Online folks, you see that screen? Okay.
Home life be translated into a standard old scientific study. After conducting extensive observations of parents and children at home, a student of Bowlby's, Mary Ainsworth, devised such a procedure called the strange situation, which places the child under some stress. It has become the most widely used standardized way to assess the quality of a child's attachment to their caregiver. Here the researchers are recording how 14-month-old Lisa responds in this attractive but unfamiliar setting. How will she react to a stranger? What will happen when her mother leaves the room and when she returns? It's Lisa's behavior when her mother returns, what psychologists call the reunion, that they are particularly interested in.
Most importantly is to look for the type of balance that a child strikes between an attachment need and on the other hand to explore the play material.
Once Lisa has settled down to play, a stranger enters the room and sits in a chair reading a magazine. After a couple of minutes, the stranger attempts to interact with Lisa. Soon after, Lisbeth gets a cue to leave the room. The stranger tries to comfort Lisa, but in vain. Lisbeth comes back into the room, and the camera records how Lisa reacts. Now the first part of the procedure is over, and Lisbeth settles Lisa down again. The stranger leaves them alone together. And soon after, Lisbeth goes too. Lisa is on her own. Her distress is plain to see. Once again, the efforts of the stranger to console Lisa are to no avail. But Lisbeth manages to calm her almost at once, and shortly afterwards the observation ends. Lisa showed outward signs of what's called secure attachment.
So what's really cool about that is initially, and I don't know if you were this way the first time you thought of attachment, but I say this with my undergrads a lot. Initially, when they see that, they think insecure. Like if they were secure, they wouldn't be distressed. No, they're secure because they have, for lack of a better term, they've imprinted on that organism, right? That's the patterns, the behaviors, the characteristics that they have modeled, and they are secure with that. And when that is not there, then they are distressed. But when that comes back, they feel secure again, right? It's when we see variations from that we start to recognize insecure attachments. When they don't even notice that the caregiver is gone, or when they are they fuss, but the caregiver comes back and they fuss, but they go to them, but they kind of push away, but they go to them, and there's a lot of inconsistency there, right? So there's this interplay between value, those things that we talked about. What's being modeled for them, what's being shared with them that is value. How consistent is that? And what is the response that the caregiver gives to them? And then in turn, the child responds to the caregiver. Okay, so we tie all of this back together. Do you understand why attachment theory is an evolutionary perspective when you think about things like ethology and imprinting and the connection to our own behavior when it comes to our caregivers and what they give us and how they respond to us and then how we in turn respond to them? Are we getting that connection? Does it make sense that this is an evolutionary perspective? Okay, good. I see some heads doing this, so I'm going to say that that's good. What I really love about attachment theory is that there's this whole new vein of attachment theory called adult attachment. And it has its own typologies. And it's very much connected to our childhood typologies. And so if you were a securely attached child, you're more likely to be able to form secure attachments in adulthood. If you had a good connection with your caregiver, you're going to be more likely to be able to enter into intimate relationships with peers or with the person that you are attracted to or with other systems, right? That's really cool to me, that there is a connection there. It shows me that this whole idea of evolution or change or adaptation or it's whatever you want to call it, it's not dependent on just one point in life, like who's that first caregiver that you're going to see an imprint on, but that is going to impact the next piece when we're toddlers, and that's going to impact the next piece when we're adolescents and entering a bigger social world, and that's going to impact the next piece when we are young adults and we're looking for whoever our mate might be, or we're looking for those peer networks that are going to push us through adulthood, right? And it's constant adaptation, evolution, change. I think that's fascinating. Any questions about evolutionary perspectives? Anybody online have any questions? Do we feel like we've got a grasp of this? Yes, we're good? Good, that makes me happy. Now, here's what's going to happen this week. This typically happens. I get very excited about evolutionary perspectives. I usually always do the first presentation anyways. I usually do the first couple, and this happens all the time. So even when I had a 3-hour class, it happened this way. Don't freak out about us not getting to psychoanalytic theory. Here's what's going to happen for psychoanalytic theory. I am going to either tomorrow evening or Thursday morning, in lieu of our regular discussion questions that we might ask for the week, I'm actually going to post a few things, including a video of myself, can't get away from me, teaching a part of psychoanalytic theory, some of Freud's stuff, with the id, ego, and superego in a very unique way. It's a fun way. With that posting, I'll also post a couple of handouts for you to look at. I'll post an overview of Freud for you to look at, an overview of Jung for you to look at, and you can just kind of get to know those theorists a little better. And then I will post probably just one large discussion question on psychoanalytic theory. And that'll happen either tomorrow night or Thursday morning. And for that discussion question, just spend a little time this weekend, maybe looking at it and trying to answer it. And that's all we're going to do with psychoanalytic theory. And then next week, we will move on to, what is next? Cognitive? I think it's cognitive. CJ, I think.
And learning.
And learning, oh yeah. So we'll have some fun next week. We'll bring in I got a Piaget bag. We'll bring in the Piaget bag and we'll have some interaction. So that's all I want to talk to you about tonight. I'm going to Colorado this weekend, so if you need something between Friday and Monday, I'm going to be on a mountain, so I don't know if I'm going to have any kind of service. So if you don't hear from me until Monday night, don't freak out.
But you're gonna have this before you go to Colorado.
Yeah, this is going up by Thursday morning at the latest.
So aren't we supposed to have, like, who's doing what theories for discussions? Does that make sense? Like, I thought you said we were supposed to know
Oh,
that
for the
last
discussion
week.
questions.
Yeah.
Yes, you know what? Because that just totally slipped my mind. Because usually you're actually presenting the theory and giving the discussion questions.
But you did good. That's
So no, I appreciate that. I did do good. I'm proud of you. But I do want you to come up with some discussion questions. So look for that as part of that Wednesday or Thursday video. I'll have them again for psychoanalytic, and we'll kickstart that next week.
okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great week.
You too on the mountain.
Oh, I will. I'm so excited. Bye, online friends.
Can I ask you a question?
Julie?
We always do the theory sheet, whether it's on there on the homework or not, right? That's a given every week?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Bye.
Whatever the theories are, I think there's 2 next week. So you'll do a theory sheet for each of those. Yeah.
Next week, not this week.
No, this week was just psychoanalytic.
Okay, so the theories we write
Whatever
next
the
week.
theory is for next week's date. Yeah.
Okay. And you're gonna remind us of that, right?
I'll remind you right now.
Okay.
Yes, I will remind you.
Thank you very much.
Do I? Yeah. Like listen to podcasts? Yeah.
I listened to a podcast on my drive today, an APA podcast that I feel like you might like. It's called Survival of Friendliness, or Friendliest.
Yeah.
And it's about their evolution and how it
Really?
applies to humans. It's
Oh,
really
that's cool.
So,
Send me the link.
okay, I'll.
That's awesome.
Bye.
See ya.
Great job.